Close the doors of your mind. Close the gates of your mind. Close the gates of your palace, your tent, your hall, your mikdan, your mikdash, your sukkah. Bring your mind to balance within yourself, within your 12 cranial nerves, within your 12 melanin centers, within the four corners of your tent, within your 4 tent pegs, within the 4 corners of your heart and your mind. Bring your heart and your mind to balance in the building that's within, in the heart and the mind of the child that's within. And bring your mind to center to your Father who's in the highest Shamayim. For a son can only do what his father does. For whatsoever you see the Father do, the Son does likewise, knowing that we must walk in righteousness continually. And today, as this Shabath, we acknowledge the one, even during this sukkah, the one who made all things, the one who formed everything from the unseen world by his voice, by his utterance, by his mouth, by his power, and giving life to understanding to all creatures and all the caterpillars and insectoids, and all the trees and the creatures and the trees and the creatures in the earth, and suspends the earth on pillars. The one who formed and shaped all the Kukab, the Yark, and all the constellations, and all the planets and all of the cosmos, that all the way to the first Shamayim, and the 4th and 5th and 6th, 7th and 7th firmament. The one who gives life and understanding to all beings in the Sheol. The one who gives life and understanding and consciousness to all beings in Sheol, to execute judgment on all those who walk in disobedience to the bar of his fruits of his ruach. To lead, not to love Qasid, and not to seek Ahab, the ones who don't walk in self-control. For he has an appointed place for all people who decide not to follow his righteous rules. So today we acknowledge the one who made all the heart of the earth, all the mountains and rivers and streams of the earth that serve humanity, that serve humans on earth, the one who provides the waters and the streams for all creatures, the one who allows you to take a shower, the one who allows you to take a bath, the one who allows you to have these things to wash yourself. Because without his rain and snow, without his rain, we don't have nothing. We have nothing. We have nothing to clean ourselves. He said our bodies will be shortened, our shortened lives will be ended in a short moment. But we look at ourselves, we look at our inward man, we look at our inward being as that desiring being to be there with him, but at the same time our human experience as we walk in this life, in this temporary vessel, this temporary tent, a hall that we move all about in this world, that we move it from one place to another, that we must still dwell inside of this booth in righteousness. And we must be waiting at the tent doors to serve, even as Abraham was waiting at the tent doors to serve someone. Why? Because that's the whole point of living, Aydah. Is to serve and to help and to love and show kindness, compassion to someone. And that is the truth. Even though man refuses to do it and continues to oppress, it's still the truth. Right, so this is the book of Bereshith. This is the book of Bereshith, chapter, I think it's Bereshith chapter 4 and verse 17. Bereshith chapter 4 and verse 17. Bereshith, Genesis chapter 4 and verse 17. And it says Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Hanuk. Right, so Cain had a side of himself. He still had a bunch of righteousness, with still a little bit of righteousness within himself, even though he got cast out. Even though he was a fugitive and a vagabond, he still had a little righteousness within him. And that's why you see him naming his son, he conceived, bore him Hanuk. Right, because just like us, we're fugitives and we're fugitives. Why? Because we are in temporary dwelling places, and now we are not in the place where Yahuwah prescribed us to be. We're not in the Gan, and we're not in Jerusalem. So, just like Cain was, that's you. And guess what it says? And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Hanuk. It says, when he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son Hanuk. Why would he not? The inheritance, he said, a good man leave an inheritance for his children. He literally made a city and he built it for his son. And guess what? Hanuk. It says Hanuk was born Irad, and Irad fathered Mahulael, and Mahulael fathered Methusael, and Methusael, right, fathered Lamech. Right. So notice how you see in this transition of time, how you got a people that I say from Adam, created in His image and likeness, continued on in a certain teaching, and then you have him continuing on in a certain teaching. But they continued on in this one teaching, and then he continued on his own teaching, and he had a person named Hanuk. He had a Methuselah. He had everything that everybody would desire in this life, right? And Lamech took 2 wives, right? Because he fathered Lamech, and Lamech took 2 wives. Why? The name of the one was Aydah, and the name of the other was Zillah, right? Because he said he took 2 wives. Why? Because that's what he could do, right? He could do whatever he wanted. But at the same time, it says, and Aydah bore Jabal, and he was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. Notice how you see the same pattern of, you see Yaakov. He dwelt in tents. He had livestock. As a matter of fact, Yaakov had 2 wives too. He had the same thing. Everybody had the same thing. But there's a difference between you dwell. He said these are the first who dwell in tents. That's what we're in. We're in temporary booths. In a hall. That word for tents is a hall. It means a tent, a dwelling place. It's a hall. And amazingly, when you look at a hall, like we look at the first day of Kagmatsu. No, Kagasuka. And it was Samak, right? That was the 15th letter of the alphabet. It means support pillar. Like when you put a tent, a hall up, a tent, you gotta have a support pillar in the middle of the tent in order to hold the tent up. Just like your spine, because that's what Samak means. It means your spine. Your spinal cord. If your spine is not aligned, then therefore your tent is not aligned and you can't actually fortify it properly, because that's what Samak means. It means fortify. It also means tower. It means tower because you got to build the actual structure of it. You have to build it, right? Because it protects you in some ways if you know how to protect your house, right? They had the thing where they say protect your house, right? But let's go. His brother's name was Jubal, Yarbal. He was the father of those who play the lyre and the pipe. You know what we're supposed to rejoice before Yahuwah in our tents and celebrate, right? The lyre and the pipe. Right? All this is all part of it. And then it says, and Zillah bore Tubal-Cain. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron, right? And guess what? The sister Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Lamech, and guess what it says in verse 23? And Lamech said to his wives, Aydah and Zillah, hear my voice, you wives of Lamech. Listen to what I say. He says, Shema. He said, why would he do that? Because a Isha is supposed to listen to the husband. He said, listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me. How many men are going to say that? I'm going to confess murder to my 2 wives, to my wife, right? How many people are going to do that? Yeah, what he says, a young man from striking me. He said, I'll kill somebody. If Cain's revenge is 7-fold, right? Because he said, any who touch Cain, you're going to be punished 7-fold. Shabath, right? Then Lamech is 77-fold. He's like, I'm going to get 77-fold. Right? But it said right here, and that's right? But all that's a part of it. But they the first to dwell in tents, right? This is the book of Job, Job, chapter 21, in verse 1. There's a reason for all this. Job 21 and 1. It says, and then Ayub answered and said, keep listening to my words, and let this be your comfort. Bear with me, and I will speak. And after I have spoken, mock on. He said, so mock on after I'm done. He said, continue to mock. He says, as for me is my complaint against man. Why should I not be impatient? Right? Because that's one of the fruits of the Ruach. That's one of the fruits of the Ruach. He said, why should I not be impatient? Because patience requires some things. It requires some things. And sometimes the reason why people don't get patience is because patience is something that is gained through tribulation. It's gained through going through the fire. It's gained through going through circumstances in your life. It's gained through that. Then you'll learn patience. you're in agony and you want it to be over. Then you gotta learn patience to wait in the midst of it all. He says, look at me and be appalled. He said, look at me and be appalled, and lay your hand over your mouth. Because that's one thing we need to do. Because amazingly, right, we look at the 16th day of the 7th month. That was the 16th. That was the second day of Sukkah. That word is ayin, right? It's ayin. It means eye, watch, experience, shade, pupil, opening, right? Openings of the ears, eyes full of light and darkness, right? All that's a part of it. But then you go down to the 17th day, which was yesterday. It is pa, it's mouth. It means mouth, cup, container, voice, soul, intake, utterance, appearance, speech, sentence, appointment, command, edge, spoken, right? So you look at all that, he's saying put your hand over your mouth. Why? Because the first day, you got to have your proper alignment in your tent, which is samak. Then the next day, you got to be eyeing and watching and experience for Satan, shaitan. You got to have your eyes open. You got to be watching. The 17th day, you got to watch what you speak. 17th day, you got to watch what you speak. You got to watch what you say. You got to watch what you utter out of your mouth. And then after that, what else you got to do? Go to verse 5. Job 21:5. Look at me and be appalled, and lay your hand over your mouth. He said that's what 17th day is. He said, lay your hand over your mouth. And then when I remember, I am dismayed, and shuddering seizes my flesh. He said, why is he shaking? He said, why is he shaking? Verse 7. Why do the wicked live, reach old age, and grow mighty in power? He like, why is this even possible? These are the things that we can do during Sukkah. We can complain. And then guess what? Then we start complaining about the old, the rich, and why they still got all this power. And then it says, their offsprings are established in their presence, and their descendants before their eyes. Why? Because you see all the things that they acquired. Their houses are safe from fear. Right? Ain't no whirlwind. He said, man, you ain't getting no punishment. We get punishment. We get whirlwind, storm, earthquake, vapor of smoke, right? Pestilence, right? Their houses are safe from fear, and no rod of Elohim is upon them. He said, man, you ain't getting beat. You ain't getting disciplined. You ain't getting chastised. And guess what? Verse 10. Their bull breeds without fail. He said, man, nothing happens to their stuff. He says, their cow calves and does not miscarry. He said they don't even miscarry. He said even though they wicked, they don't get no miscarriages like we do. They don't get none of these things. They don't get anything happen to them. They send out their little boys like a flock, and their children dance. He's like, that's what we supposed to do during Sukkah. We supposed to celebrate. Get what it says. They sing to the tambourine and the lyre. You know, we just read it, Yabal. Cain. Remember, Cain had all that. Lamech, his whole family, right? And it says, and rejoice at the sound of the pipe. You know what? That came from Yabal. That came from the lineage of Cain. They were all doing it. They spent their days in prosperity. And in peace, shalom, they go down to Sheol. He's like, he said, man, they go down to Sheol in shalom, right? Peace. Verse 14, they say to Elohim, depart from us. That's what they say. And you know, some men and women do that today. And he say, why Yahuwah always punish us when we say depart from us? Why do you think we get punished when you say Yahuwah, depart from us? We do not desire the knowledge of your ways. You said we don't want to know what you're talking about. We don't know. You want to know your wisdom and knowledge and understanding. We don't want to know who your Elohim is. And you know what? It's people like that today. It's people like that in your family. It's people like that in your life. He said we don't want to know nothing about your ways. Right? That's why Yahuwah said, he that loves son and daughter, mother and father, he loves these things more than me. You're not worthy of me. And then he says, why is the Almighty what is the Almighty that we should serve him? They want to know, why should we go to this Qahalath? Why should we do Qahalath? Why should we serve getting some booths on the 7th month for 7 days, from the 15th day to the 22nd day? Why are we going to do that? What's the point? Why we got to learn all that? Why we got to do it? And get what it says. Why should we serve him? And what profit do we if we pray to him? If my people call by my name. He's like, what profit? What is that? Confess my sins? Dwell in 7 violent booths? Right? Celebrate but then get beat down, punished, and disciplined at the same time? That makes no sense. Right? Nobody wants that. And then he says, behold, is not their prosperity in their hand? He's like, man, they got it right there in the yacht in their car. It's in their hand. The counsel of the wicked is far from me. Right? Behold, is not their prosperity in their hand? The counsel of the wicked is far from me. How often is it that the lamp of the wicked is put out? How many times that happen? He's like, for some reason, he said the lamp of the wicked ain't never put out. Their calamity comes upon them. He said that calamity comes upon them. When did the lamp of the wicked come out and the calamity come upon them? When? That Elohim disturbs pain in his anger. He's like he disturbed their peace. Right? Verse 18. That they are like straw before the wind. He said that they are like straw before the wind, and like chaff that the storm carries away. That's what the tempest is. We just went through Turah. But guess what? You say Elohim stores up their iniquity for their children. That's what you say. Let him pay it out to them that they may know it. He's like, please do it now. He's like, how come they continue to do this? He said, let them know it. Verse 20, let their own eyes see their destruction, and let them drink of the wrath of the Almighty. Right? So you look at all that. Now you see why in Bereshit, even though Cain built all them cities and they had all those things, Yahuwah still poured out his wrath and sent the flood on them. He named cities after he named his children. He named the city after his child and everything. Had all the things that you would normally want. But Yahuwah still rained down the flood on them, flood on them, and destroyed. He only saved 8 souls. He still did it. Right? He still did it. Verse 21. That's why he told us to dwell in Sukkah. You just want to keep your remembrance that this is only temporary. Verse 21. For what do they care for their houses after them, when the number of their mouths is cut off, the number of their months is cut off? Will any teach Elohim knowledge, seeing that he judges those who are on high? Right. This is the last thing I want. One dies and is full of vigor, being wholly at ease and secure, right? And his pails full of milk, and marrow of his bones moist. Another dies in bitterness of soul, never having tasted of prosperity, right? So you look at all that. There's some people that never even tasted prosperity. You know, I say you had to taste it one time, and I remember I used to be had a prosperity, and I tasted it. And he said, man, I died in bitterness of soul. And people say, why did he give Yahushua bitter wine, sour wine at the end? He said, it is finished. Why do you think they did that? That man was in bitterness of soul. He said he never having tasted prosperity. He said, man, only thing I tasted was sour wine. He even told the people when he was walking for them 3 years, foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, the son of Adam had nowhere to lay his head. And they'd be like, oh, so you saying he was fulfilling that? Verse 26, they lie down alike in the dust, and the worms cover them. Right? Verse 27, behold, I know your thoughts and your schemes to wrong me. For you say, where is the house of the prince? Where is the tent in which the wicked live? He said, where is it? Have you not asked those who travel the roads? Have you not asked the ones who travel the roads and do not accept their testimony? That the evil man is spared in the day of calamity? That he is rescued in the day of wrath? Right? So you look at all that. You say, so why? Right, so this is the 18th day of the 7th month. Right, 18th day of the 7th month, and this is the 18th letter of the alphabet, which is Tsad. Tsad. It means host, insect, transformation. Jointed leg, winged creature, warrior, victory. It means warrior, victory. Adversary. It means desire. Desire. Winged creature. It means need, trail. Journey. Chase. Hunt. Side. Saddle of. Concerning or adversary. Right? All that's a part of it. But you just read here. He said, where is the tent? He said, where is the tent in which the wicked live? Verse 28. He said, where is it? He said, where is it? Right? And people say, why he said that? Right? So we go into the book of Ecclesiastes. Book of Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 1. It says, dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench, right? So we talk about offering a sweet smelling savor to Yahuwah. He said, but dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench, right? You see all these flies when you start cooking, they start running around, right? Depending on what type of food you cook. Right? Flies like certain type foods. And when you cook it, they come. They gather around. So a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. He said a little folly. Right? He said little folly. Right? It doesn't matter. You ain't got to be a lot. That little folly can tear down a whole household. That little folly can destroy a human being, a man or a woman. That little folly can destroy a man or a husband or a wife. That little folly can destroy a child. That little folly can destroy your riches. That little folly can destroy a lot of things, right? And yet what it says, a wise man's heart inclines himself to the right, but a fool's heart to the left. Why? Because we look at the right as the sheep, and he said the left is the goat. But then the wise people go to the right. Why? Because people on the right tend to have been through a lot more than people on the left. And it says, even when the fool walks on the road, he lacks sense. He said he lacks sense, right? It doesn't matter. We talk about fools. He said these people lacking sense. But it says, and he says to everyone that he is a fool. He said, I already told you I don't know nothing. Verse 4, if the anger of a ruler rises against you, do not leave your place. He said, why? He said, don't leave it. Right? He said, if the anger of a ruler rises against you, do not leave your place. For calmness will lay great offenses to rest. And that's how you got to look at yourself when we go through these days, even throughout your life, right? Because if you put your hand over your mouth, he said, when the anger of a ruler rises against you, that's like a mouth. What he says, he said, don't leave your place. He said, for calmness will lay great offenses to rest. Why? Because it allows things to be at rest, just like any other thing. Why? Because these things happen in life. If they ain't, what's the point of putting this in here if you ain't gonna be testing on it? There's no point in putting verses in the Torah that people read all the time and try to say, but what's the point? He only puts that in there just so you can see that you are not walking in it. Wisdom, right? That's the only reason he put it in there. Right? For calmness will lay great offenses to rest. Offenses to rest. That word for calmness, Ecclesiastes 9 and 4. Ecclesiastes 9 and 4, that word for calmness, right? Or 10 and 4, I'm sorry. Ecclesiastes 10 and 4. Ecclesiastes 10 and 4, that word for calmness is marpe. Marpe. Right? So for, let me see. Yeah. Sorry, that word for yielding. Yeah, they got yielding in here, but it's marpe. It means medicine. This is for medicine, a cure. Right? concretely cure for, it's the cure for yanak. It says what? It pacifies great offenses, right? That word for it says that word for great offenses, that word for, it means that word for great is yanak. It stays. Dagesh. It says with the dagesh are there. It says dagesh, but it says right here it means to deposit, to allow, to stay. Right. It puts out fires. Right. Just like we talk about, it puts out certain things. It for calmness will lay great offenses to rest. Just like how when things get real calm, it brings a shalom. Right. It more brings offenses to rest because we know that these things rise up. But if you don't do this, then guess what? Then Satan, the Tsad, will have been fully manifest today. Right? And people say what? He would have been fully manifest, right? And people say how? Because he would have been an adversary. Matter of fact, he would have been doing he would have been a warrior, he would have been a winged creature, he would have been doing all types of things. He would have been accusing you to Yahuwah himself. Because there came a time when the sons of Elohim came to appear before Yahuwah, and Satan came also. Right? That's the only thing he's going to do. Verse 5, there is an evil that I have seen under the sun, as it were an error proceeding from the ruler. Right? Folly is set in many high places, and the rich sit in low places. I have seen slaves on horses and princes walking on the ground like slaves. Now you see why when King of Syria came to Ahab, he wanted to bring him all the slaves. He said, if they come for peace, keep them alive. If they come for war, keep them alive. I've seen princes as slaves. And guess what happens? He who digs a pit will fall into it. He said, you're going to fall in it if you dig a pit. If you set a trap, you plot and scheme, to understand it's going to happen to you. It says, and a serpent will bite him who breaks through a wall. And a what? He said, and a serpent will bite him who, what? A serpent will bite him, right? Who breaks through a wall, right? So that word for serpent is nakash. 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 You mean adversary? An adversary. Tsad. And get what it says. And he who digs a pit will fall into it, and a serpent will bite him who breaks through a wall. Right? He who quarries stone is hurt by them, and he who splits logs is endangered by them. Notice all this is all digging up rocks and splitting logs. That's what you do to burn firewood. And you gotta offer a morning sacrifice and an evening sacrifice. And rocks and stones are used to he said, execute judgment on people. But also rocks and stones are used to build a tower. You know, like build a tower, like Samak. Right? And it says, verse 10, if the iron is blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, he must use more strength. And you say iron sharpen iron. But then sometimes you gotta use a little bit more strength in order to get it to where it needs to, right? Because you know, a man's glory is his strength. Kabod is his strength. And his kabod is to overlook offenses. But wisdom helps the one who succeeds. Let's skipping over to verse 20. Even in your thoughts, do not curse the king, right? 10 and 20. He said, even in your thoughts, do not curse the king. He said, for my eyes have seen the king, right? But he also said, I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell among a people of unclean lips. Because you know what's going to happen if you got them unclean lips. And you don't realize you got unclean lips, and you think you see. Even in your thoughts, do not curse the king. You're going to end up saying something out of your mouth, or your paw, that will going to literally make you just like the person you don't want to be. Even in your thoughts, do not curse the king, because you can do it in your imaginations and your thoughts. Do not curse the king, nor in your bedroom curse the rich. He said, don't even curse the rich. Why? For a bird of the air will carry your voice, right? He's going to carry your voice. And you know, that's why he wants us in sukkah booths. He said, why he wants us in sukkah? So when you be going outside and you be talking, then the birds be hearing you talk. And they be hearing you gossiping, slander, and they hear you doing all that stuff around your tent. Then they going to take your voice. And they going to go tell somebody. He's like, we're going to go tell. Some bird of the air will carry your voice, or some winged creature. Isn't that what Tsad is? Now you see why people say, why the 17th day is pop? That's the 17th letter of the alphabet. That's your mouth. He said, put your hand over your mouth. Why? Because on the next day, if you don't, for a bird of the air will carry your voice, or some winged creature will tell the matter. That's the whole point. He said, you're going to find out about it. That's why all the birds around chirping. He's like, man, why all the birds are out here? Why all the insectoids, everything around you? He's like, Satan around too, the adversary too. He said, everything around. Why? Because that's just a part of how they operate. And he wanted us out in the booths. And that's the whole point. Right, so this is the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, Samuel. This is the book of Samuel. Second Samuel, chapter 11 and verse 1. 2 Samuel, chapter 11 and verse 1. It says, in the spring of the year, the time when the kings go out to battle, you know what the king of Assyria said? He said, Ahab, make sure you prepare yourself, because king of Assyria coming to fight you in the spring. He coming. And guess what it says? And David sent to Joab his servants with him, and all Yasharal, and they ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained at Jerusalem. Right, that's why he tells you that I want you to dwell in booths. Matter of fact, I want you out there with the lions and the leopards and the birds. I want you out there. I want you out there with the wolves. Why? And then we said, and it happened late one afternoon when David arose from his couch and was walking on the roof of the king's house, and he saw from the roof a woman bathing. He said, I was walking on the wing of the king's house. Because, you know, that's the king's house. I was on the roof of the king's house. And amazingly, when you're in those booths, you have tents and you have booths where you can get the splendid branches and you put them on your roof, right? And you know what it says? Woman bathing, and you know, on the roof, a woman bathing, because you know when we ain't had no indoor. You know how you had indoor showers, right? And all that stuff. We ain't had that. It people outside. Matter of fact, we was in rivers, so you could see everything. He said, "Oh, there's somebody bathing, right?" And the woman was very beautiful, right? And David sent and inquired about the woman, and one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" And that's what happens. He said, idle mind is Satan's mental thought process playground, right? And he said, so David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her, right? All at the same time. And guess what? Now she had been purifying herself from her uncleanness. Why? Because she was cleansing herself from her virgin blood that comes back. That's what that is, it's virgin blood. Then she returned to her house, right? After she done came back from her little, how you say, virgin blood now coming up. And now she went back to her house and he lay with her too. And the woman conceived, and she sent and told David, I am pregnant. Right? She's like, man, I'm pregnant. How long it take to know that? Right? How long it take? Yeah. And then so David sent word to Joab and send me Uriah. It says, sent word to Joab, send me Uriah the Hittite. And And Dawid sent Uriah to David. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah came to him, Dawid asked how Joab was doing, and how the people were doing, and how the war was going. He's like, how the war is going. And guess what? And then Dawid said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. He said, go down and wash your feet. Because you can be clean. Your body can be clean, but your feet ain't clean. You ain't clean. He said, you don't wash your feet. And Uriah went out of the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. Right? So he gave him a present. All these happen even during Sukkah. You give presents, you give gifts. And you wash your feet, right? But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house. I slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his master, and did not go down to his house. Why he didn't go down to his house? And when they told Dawid, Uriah did not go down to his house, Dawid said to Uriah, have you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house? Uriah said to Dawid, right? He said, man, you came on a long journey, man. Why you ain't go to your house? And Uriah said to Dawid, the ark of Yasharal and Yehuda dwell in booths. Oh. He said, that's why I ain't go to my house. Because Yehuda, he said, man, they dwell, the ark of Yehuda. He said, the ark and Yasharal and Yehuda dwell in booths. They dwelling in Sukkah. That's why I ain't going to my house. Because they are dwelling in Sukkah. So why should I go be in my house when everybody in Sukkah? So why are you in your house? Where you dwell at? Your permanent house, you know how to say? And everybody else is in Sukkah booths. Everybody in Sukkah. And guess what he said? He says, the ark of Yashral and Yehuda dwell in Sukkah, and my master, Joab, and the servants of my master are camping in the open field. He's like, hello, these people out in the woods. They right there in the open field. But you want me to go in my house, though. You know, Dawid, because he's like, that's how some people got that mindset. When it comes to Sukkah, and they be wanting to say, you know what? It ain't all that serious. It don't really mean nothing. You know, and they don't have the mindset of Uriah. They don't have the mindset of the men in times past and the men and women in times past. Why? Because now they see. When you ain't keeping the mu'ahs and the feast, he said, man, you ain't doing nothing but trouble. Right? Because you ain't busy. You doing something else. He said, what you doing? Man, I ain't going to them booths, man. What you doing? I already know what you doing. You doing something else you got no business doing. When you out here, when you out in the Sukkah booth, you ain't thinking about the same things you normally would think about. And guess what he said? Why do you not go down to your house? Uriah said to Dawid, the ark of Yasharal and the Yehuda dwell in booths, and my master Joab and the servants of my master are camping in the open field. Shall I then go to my house to eat and drink and to lie with my wife? He say, so why should I go there? He said, why should I do that? Right? He said, why? And he says, as you live and as your souls live. He said, why should I go to my house? Live like everybody else. Go chill. Right? Go chill in my house. Right? My natural house, my permanent house, and go sleep with my wife while everybody else are on booths. In temporary houses. He said that's probably the number one reason why families are small now today. Notice the people who lived in tents in a hall that were traveling in tents, they had way bigger families than the people who were living in the house. I don't know what it is. It was for some reason. I mean, you go look at the records, right? Go look at the records, right? For some reason, what you think? In Mizraim, they were living in houses like Yusuf. I guess you thought they were doing that. No, they weren't living like that. They were living in the best part of the land, and they were living in sukkah booths. They were living in booths, right? They were living in tents, right? But it says, shall I go to my house and eat and drink and lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing. Then Dawid said to Uriah, remain here today also and tomorrow, and I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next and the next. And Dawid invited him, and he ate in the presence and drank, so that he made him drunk. He got him drunk. Right? Same thing people do during Sukkah. They get drunk in their tents. Right? But Uriah ain't in his tent. He in Dawid's king's house. And Dawid's supposed to be out there in them Sukkah booths too. And he ain't there. He said, why you ain't in the Sukkah? Why you ain't in the Sukkah? He should have been there, but he in the house getting drunk though. And guess what? And in the evening, he went out to lie on his couch with his servants of his master, but he did not go down to his house. He said, even though you got me drunk, you will say, no, you ain't gonna get me there. And guess what? And in the morning, Dawid wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. In the letter he wrote, set Uriah in the forefront in the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die. Right? And that's exactly what the adversary, Satan, will do to you. And that's what people do that don't keep Sukkah. They'll bring the hardest fight to you, and they'll bring the hardest thing to you, and make the battle hot with you when it comes to you trying to keep Sukkah and do the things you want to do the things you need to do, and then they'll create this whole situation just so you can die. I hate your everlasting guts, right? I hate you and I hate your everlasting guts, and that's what they do. What you going to do that for? And they create this whole situation just so that you won't be able to do what you say you were going to do. I want to go do this. I want to go do on the Sukkah. But you want me to be all in luxury and feel all great about myself when I know I and everybody else is in Sukkah. But then it says, and Joab was besieging the city, and he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew there were valiant men. He said he did camouflage to some valiant men, to make it so the strongest men with him when he going into the hardest fight. And the men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the servants of Dawid among them people fell. There's more murder on you. So just because just one person who don't want you to keep Sukkah can destroy other people who do the same thing. And guess what it says? And some of the servants of Dawid among them people fell, and Uriah the Hittite also died. And he said, you died too. He said, I'm going to kill you. He said, this time tomorrow you're going to be dead. Isn't that what that sound like? That sound like the adversary too, with King of Assyria. That sound like Isabel when she came to kill all Yahoo. Same thing. And amazingly, this time tomorrow I'm going to kill you. Because you wouldn't do what I told you. And guess what it says? Then Joab sent and told Dawid all the news about the fighting. He said, and please don't be thinking they don't talk about you either. And did what he said. And he instructed the messenger, when you have finished telling all the news about the fighting to the king, then if the king's anger rises, and if he says to you, why did you go so near to the city to fight? Did you not know that they would shoot from the wall? He said, why did you go so near to the city to fight? Did you not know they're going to shoot from the wall? Verse 21, who killed Abimelech the son of Jabishah? Did not a woman cast a upper millstone on him from the wall, so that he died at Tebez? Why did you go so near to the wall? Then you shall say, your servant Uriah Hittite is dead also. That's what happens. He said, you get too close to the wall, then that's what happens. You get hit over the head with a stone. You get hit with arrows. Why did you do that? They said, no, they do. They put him in the front, leading the battle, going up to the top, like Yehuda getting ready to jump over a wall, and you a loud screech, right? They set you up. Not even knowing they set you up They only set you up to fall, but they were going to sit back and watch the whole time and wait for the news to see when you fall. But not even knowing this is all a setup, right? From Yahuwah himself. This is all a setup. And when people try to set you up, when you go in to keep the sukkah and trying to, in the 7th month, the 7 days in the 7th month, and keep all the Shabbatons, you know what happens to them? Right? Because he said you got close to the wall, and then what happened? He said you get shoot with an arrow, you get hit with a millstone. Right? This is Matthew chapter 18 and verse 1. Matthew chapter 18 verse 1. Matthew chapter 18 and verse 1. It says, at that time the disciples came to Yahushua saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of Shamayim? Right? He said, who's the greatest? And amazingly, he told Baruch, he said, don't seek after nothing great. And he says, and calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them and said, truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will not enter the Malkuth of Shamayim. Whoever humbles himself, a Sana, like this child, is the greatest in the kingdom of Shamayim. He said, you the greatest. And you know, children ain't seeking after all that great stuff like human beings and grown people are. Because grown people want to be great. But when the child is first born, they're not seeking after that stuff. And guess what it says? Whosoever receives one such child in my name receives me. But whosoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, all Yasharal and Yehuda and the ark dwelling in sukkah booths. In sukkah. What you say? Man, go to your house, man. Chill out, man. We get you drunk tonight. Man, you good. Whosoever calls one of these little ones to believe in me to sin, it will be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck, and he be drowned in the depths of the sea. Man, just like that stone hit that man on the head, just like the arrows hit that person, that innocent person. He said, let it happen to you. But he says, verse 7, woe to the world for temptations to sin. For it is necessary that temptations come. And then what Dawid was in, he's like, man, that's necessary. That was necessary. Why? But woe to the one whom the temptations comes. And in your hand, it says, and if your hand and your foot cause you to sin, but you gotta have clean hands. Y'all didn't cough and regall your feet. Cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter into life crippled and lame than for 2 hands and 2 feet be thrown in eternal fire. Right? If your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it will better for you to enter into life with 1 eye than with 2 eyes to be thrown into Sheol. Right? It is better, right? So this is the Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1, Vision of Azra, Visions of Ezra, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1, Visions of Ezra, Visions of Ezra. And it says right here, verse 1, and Azra prayed to Yahuwah, saying, grant me courage, O Yahuwah, that I might not fear when I see the judgments of the sinners. Right? And it says, and there were granted to him 7 angels, and there were granted to him 7 Malachim of Sheol, who carried him beyond the 17th grade of the infernal regions. And he carried him beyond what? The 17th grade in the infernal regions, right? So what's the 17th letter of the alphabet? Pa. Which mouth, utterance, command, right? All that's a part of it. But he says he carried him, it said carried him beyond the 17th infernal regions. What's the 18th letter of the alphabet? Tsad. It means desire. It means adversary. Right? It means winged creature. And guess what it says? And he saw fiery gates. And at these gates he saw 2 lions lying there, from whose mouths and nostrils and eyes proceeds the most powerful flames, right? So you got most powerful flames, right? It says the most powerful men were entering and passing through the fire, right? And it did not touch them. Huh? He said the most powerful men. He said it didn't even touch them. He said it didn't even touch them, right? This is the book of Daniel. Right? This is the book of Daniel, chapter 6. So go to Daniel chapter 4. Daniel chapter 4. Chapter 3. Daniel chapter 3 verse 1. Daniel chapter 3 verse 1. It says, and King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and whose breadth was 60 cubits. Right? He, as an even, right? And it says, he set it up on the plain of Turah in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent to gather the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justice and the magistrates, and all the officials in the provinces to come in the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Right? We had dedications too. We dedicated the temple, right? Anything we created, we dedicated it to Yahuwah, right? Anything we had. And guess what it said? Then the satraps and the prefects and the governors and the council and the treasurers and the justice and the magistrates and all the courts, right, and the lawgivers and all the officials of the province gathered for the dedication of the image of King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And then they stood before the image of Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they herald proclaimed aloud, you are commanded, O people, nations and languages, that when you hear the sound of the pipe, the lyre and the harp and the bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And who were the ones beginning? He said, make the pipes and the lyre. That's from Cain's lineage. The children of Cain. Right? Same person. The children of Cain. They made cities and called it after their name. Their son's name. And it says, and it says right here, it says, and whosoever does not fall down and worship the image, is verse 6, immediately, it says, fall down and worship shall immediately be cast in the burning fiery furnace. He said immediately. Not even a hesitation. Therefore, as soon as all the peoples heard the sounds of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, and the bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Yahudim, right? They say maliciously, right? Why? They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whosoever does not fall down and worship the image shall be cast in the fiery furnace. There are certain Yahudim you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, it says Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship your golden image that you have set up. They don't worship it, right? Going to verse 16. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. And if this be so, our Elohim, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. And he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship your golden image that you have set up. And Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury. Why? Because he spent a lot of money. You know how it is. When you spend a lot of money and you do a lot of things and you create a lot of things and a lot of feats in the world, and a lot of people love you, guess what? And then you have some people who won't do it and won't worship you and show you something and give you some type of praise. You get upset and you start attacking them without a cause, right? For no reason at all, because that's what you want. And when they don't give it to you, then you get all upset and you want to destroy them. That's what people do. This is what people do during Sukkah too. You get all upset. And people say, why? You say you could be worthless, man. When you can have all that stuff, you could be worthless, right? But this is what they do. And this is what it says. And then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression of his face changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated. Man, put some more wood in there. Matter of fact, put some oil in there, put some pine oil in there. Make that thing go up even higher. And it says, and he ordered some of the mighty men in the army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bounded in their cloaks, in their tunics, in their hats, and in other garments. Right? And guess what it says? And they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace because the king's order was urgent, and the furnace was overheated. The flames of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the fiery furnace. Right, so all that's a part of it. Right, so skipping over, it says verse 24. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose in haste, and he declared to all his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king," he answered. And he said, "But I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4 are like the son of the gods," right? Of the Elohim, right? Because he's a god. And that's all a part of it, right? Going back to the vision of Vision of Azra, Vision of Azra, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1. And there were granted to him 7 Malachim of Sheol, who carried him beyond the 17th grade of the infernal regions. And he saw fiery gates, and at these gates he saw 2 lions lying there, from whose mouths and nostrils and eyes proceeded the most powerful flames. The most powerful men were entering and passing through the fire, and it did not touch them. And Azra said, "Who are they who advances so safely?" Right? He said they advanced so safely. And it says, the Malachi said to him, "They are the just who repute has ascended to Shamayim." He said, what? They are the just whose repute has ascended to Shamayim, who gave alms generously, right? And what else they do? Clothe the naked and desire a good desire. Why? Because that's what Tsad means. Tsad, this is the 18th day of the 7th month. Tsad means desire. He said they desire a good desire. He said, why? Because that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Right? So this book of John. Yeah. Matthew. Go to book of Matthew. Book of Matthew 25. Matthew chapter 25. Matthew 25 and verse 31. Matthew 25:31. It says, "When the son of Adam comes in his kabod, and all the Malachim with him, then he who sits on his glorious throne before him will gather all nations, and he will separate one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on the right, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on the right, 'Come, you beloved of my father, inherit the Malkuth prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer and say, Master, when did we see you hungry and feed you, and thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick and in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, Truly I say to you, as you did it to the one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. Going back to vision of Azra. Vision of Azra, verse 6. And he said, Who are they who advance so safely? The Malachim said to him, These are the just whose repute has ascended to Shaby'ay, who gave alms generously, clothed the naked, and desired a good desire. And others were entering that they might pass through the gates. Right? And others were entering that they might pass through the gates. And dogs were ripping them apart, and fire was consuming them. And Azra said, Who are they? And the Malachim said, They denied the master and sinned with women on Yahuwah's day. Right? He said, why? He said, on Yahuwah's day. He said, why? Because when you have Yahuwah's day, you're supposed to abstain from all carnal will, all carnal thought, all pleasures, all these things that people desire in this world. Why? Because that's a part of it. And Azra said, Yahuwah, have mercy on the sinners. He said, have mercy on the sinners. And he said, man, and he said, why hasn't Yahuwah consumed? Because Yahuwah said, I am Yahuwah, I change not. Therefore the sons of Jacob are not consumed yet. And he said, why he said that? People have not done. And it says, and they led him to the Lord beyond the 15th grade, and he saw in that place men standing in torment. Some were throwing fire in their faces. Others, however, were whipping them with fiery scourges. And the earth cried out, saying, Whip them and refuse to have mercy on them, because they worked impiety upon me. Guess what it says? And Azra said, Who are they? Who are in such torment daily? And the Marquis said, They dwell with married women. The married women are those who adorn themselves not for their husbands. Right? He said they committed adultery. That's literally what he said. He said they adorn themselves for another man. He said they get all dressed up and looking nice for another man, but not for their husbands though. And he said, that they might please others. He said, why? He said, why? He said, you pleasing others, right? So this is the book of 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Oh, man. First Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 34. Verse 32. And I want you to be free from anxieties. The unmarried man is anxious about the things of Yahuwah, how he may please Yahuwah. But the married man is anxious about the worldly things and how he'll please his wife. Right? Or wives, or Nashim, or you must say. And his interests are divided. And the unmarried or betrothed woman is anxious about the things of Yahuwah, how to be Kudash in body and Ruach. But the married woman is anxious about worldly things, how to please her husband. That's what it should be. But it says, but on here it says no. She said, but that they might please others, desiring evil desire. There you go, Tsad. That's what today is, 18th day of the 7th month. An evil desire. Tsad. Right. Azra said, Yahuwah have mercy on the sinners. If you say, wait, why would you want to go to a sukkah booth, get disciplined with Yahuwah's the bar, and confess your sins and give praise to Yahuwah? That makes no sense. That makes no sense, but it does. Verse 19, and again they brought him to the south, And he saw fire and poor ones, and also women hanging. And the Malachim were whipping them with fiery clubs. And Azra said, Master, have mercy on the sinners. Who are they? And the Malachim said, they dwelled with their mothers, desiring an evil desire. And Azra said, Yahuwah, have mercy on the sinners. They did what? Yahuwah said, I made you to dwell in booths. But he said, then some are in the booths with their mothers, and they have an evil desire inside the booths, in their mind. Right, this is the book of Leviticus, chapter, people say, people ain't doing this. I said, okay. Leviticus chapter 19, Leviticus chapter 19, or 18 in verse 1. Right, Leviticus 18 and 1. Leviticus 18 and 6. None of you shall approach any of one of your relatives to uncover their nakedness. I am Yahuwah. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, which is the nakedness of your mother, for she is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. He said, man, you got some people in booths, man, they got some evil desire in sukkah booths. They were dwelling in booths. He made us dwell in booths, but he got some in the booths that doing things they shouldn't. They be thinking about things they shouldn't. Right, this is the book of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 18, Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 9 and verse 1. Genesis chapter 9 and verse, skipping over the verse. Genesis chapter 9 and verse 22. Genesis chapter 9 verse 22. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his brothers outside. He said, I saw my mother naked. He said, you got evil desire. Yahuwah said, I got Malachi. Now you see why Ham, now you see why Yahuwah had a problem with Ham. When he brought us out of Mizraim, he had a real problem with him. People had no idea. He had a whole problem with this person. Right? And it says, and saw the nakedness of his father and told it to his brothers outside. And then Shem, Japheth, took a garment and laid it on both their shoulders and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Right, this is what happens when you have older people dwelling in booths around. People be doing things they should not. And this is what happens. And walked backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. They walked backwards. Their faces were turned backward. And they did not see their father's nakedness, which means they didn't see the nakedness of their mother in the tent. Because they both were naked. Because they were both naked. Right, let's see what happened. Go to verse 20. Nuach began to be a man of the soil and planted a vineyard. That's what he was doing, man. He worked hard. And you know what happened? And he drank the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. Uh-oh. This is what you don't want to do during Sukkah. Because remember, there's a whole you don't want to do. You don't want to get drunk. Because something might happen, right? Not on Yahuwah's day, but, you know, it could be happening on the other days during the week of the thing of it. And then you can get drunk. And next you know, you're uncovered in your tent. And then somebody just walk in. And then next you know, Yahuwah get hot. Yahuwah get mad. And then that's what happens. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But these things happen when you have a lot of people around. Right? It's not a reason. It's for a reason, though. And that's what happened. You don't want to be in your tent, right? A hall like that, your sukkah. And Ham and his father of Canaan saw the nakedness of his father. He says, and he told it to his brothers, right? Now he's going to start telling, because y'all had told you they're going to brag. Eventually somebody going to start talking. Yeah, I saw such and such, right? And that's when you're going to find out. That's what you're going to find out. And guess what he said after that? Their faces were turned backwards, and they did not see the father's nakedness. And when Nuach awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Curse be Canaan." Right? That's why Uriah didn't go into his house. He woke from that wine. He's like got him drunk. And for some reason, why won't he go in that house? Because Yahuwah will stop you. Yahuwah will be having his hand over you. And people don't even know. He look at the mindset of people. He say, Yahuwah will have his whole hand over your whole life, and you don't even know it. And then the people who got evil desire, Yahuwah will be looking at you the whole time. People be thinking they escaping. Yahuwah will be looking at you. You be like, I got a hand over them, but I'll be looking at you. I see you. I only did this for this one purpose, just for you. And it says, and when Nuach awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall be to his brothers. He also said, Barak be Yahuwah, the Elohim of Shem, and let Canaan be your servant. Right? All that he took place after that. He said, cursed be Canaan. Right? And that's the whole point. Going back to vision of Azra, chapter 20, in verse 21. And Azra said, Yahuwah have mercy on the sinners. And he said, who are they? And the Malachim said, they dwelled with their mothers, desiring an evil desire. And Azra said, Yahuwah have mercy on the sinners. He's like, please, right? And then he said, and they led him downward to infernal regions and saw a cauldron in which were sulfur, bitumen. It was rolling just like the waves of the sea. And the just were entering, and in the midst of it, they were walking over the fiery waves, praising greatly the name of Yahuwah, just like those who walk over dew or cold water. And Azra said, who are they? The Malachim said, these are the ones who daily were making better confessions before Elohim and the Qahalath priests, and freely bringing alms and resisting sins. Right? So people say, why you want to dwell in sukkah booths, confessing your sins as priests of Yahuwah? Right? Because that's what we are. Why you want to do that? That makes no sense. Why you want to go do that? And he's saying giving alms. That's like giving, right? It could be time giving things, right? And he said, and resisting sins. He's like, resisting sin. He says, you doing all this. What you doing all this in the sukkah booth for? In a sukkah? That's what you want to go do? Man, that's a waste of time. Okay, let's see. And the sinners came wishing to pass over. And the Malachim, and pass over. And the angels, the Malachim of hell, came and submerged them in the fiery stream, right? Now, you ain't walking on water. You know how Yahushua did? So this is the book of, let's go to the book of Mark. This is the book of Mark. It'd be a lot of things going on spiritually. People don't know, right? It's a lot of things going on. Right, this is the book of Matthew, book of Matthew, in verse 14 and 23. It says, and after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from land, beaten by the waves, for the winds was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. Right, about 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m., right? That's what you would call it. He was walking on the sea, but the disciples saw him walking on the sea. They were terrified and said, it is a ghost. They said, it's something from the spirit world, because these beings exist. Because some people don't believe the unseen world exists. They don't believe these beings exist. They don't believe the spirits of the slaves are still here. They don't believe the spirits of the indigenous still here. They still here. They walk around. They still here. It's a ghost, right? It's a phantom. They still here. They still here. It said, but immediately Yahushua spoke to them, saying, take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. And then Qahalath answered him, Master, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. And he said, I made Yashral to dwell in booths. He said, this is a commandment. He commanded people to do this. He said, command me. And he said, come. So Qahalath got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Yahushua. He said, so what do you think the people were doing in the vision of Azra? What do you think they were heading to? Why do you think they were walking on the surface that the other people couldn't? Because they followed his commandments. But guess what happened? But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And that's the only reason you're going to have people try to stop you. They try to make you afraid to do it. He was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Yahuwah, save me. He said, Master, save me. Right? Because people be thinking like, I don't need nobody to save me. But you need somebody to save you. That's why you're doing this sukkah. That's why you do it. Because you need him to save you. Yahushua immediately reached out his hand. See, you know how Nebuchadnezzar immediately wanted to throw you in the fiery furnace. Immediately. He wanted to throw you in. Like, he ain't hesitate. But you see Yahushua immediately saving people. Nebuchadnezzar, when he ain't getting no worship, and those who got that type mindset, they want to throw you in the furnace. They want to destroy you. But it still worked out. It still worked out, though. Right, some people believed in Yahuwah after that. But anyway, it says, and Yahushua immediately reached out his hand and took him hold of him, saying, O ye of little Amunah, why do you doubt? That's the only reason people don't keep Chag Sukkah. Because you got little Amunah. He said, that's why you got little Amunah. Right, going back to Vision of Azra, chapter 26. They are the ones who daily were making better confessions before Elohim and the Qahalath priests, freely bringing alms and resisting sins. And the sinners came wishing to pass over, as the Malachim and the Malachim of hell came and submerged them in the fiery stream. And from the fire they cried out, saying, Yahuwah, have pity. Isn't that what Koph said? Now you see why. He said, man, y'all weren't even on the level of Koph. He said, we ain't never did that before. But you see what you got to do. He said, Yahuwah, have mercy on me. Save me. Right? But he said, have pity on us. But he did not have pity. Uh-oh. So you know this is the time when Yahuwah cannot be found anymore. Right? Seek Yahuwah while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Because you know those who are near him will understand it. If you were blind, you will have no guilt. But being that you say you see, your guilt remains. He said he had no pity. He said a voice was heard, but a body was not seen. Why? Because of the fire and the anguish. And Azra said, who are they? The Malachi said, they were brought down by lust all their days. Now you see why Yahushua was so strict on looking at women, or married women looking at men. He was just strict on anything of that. You see what happened to Ham, looking at his mother, evil desire. He said, they were brought down by lust all the days, and they did not receive strangers. Uh-oh. You know we just read it in Matthew chapter 10, 25, I'm sorry. He said they didn't receive strangers. They did not give alms. They took unjustly the things of others for themselves. Covetous. Teaching for money, novel for money, all that stuff. Kamas, unjust gain. Guess what? And they had an evil desire. Tsad. Now you see why people say, why you want to dwell in Sukkah? This is the reason. Therefore, they are in anguish, and Azra said, Yahuwah, have mercy on the sinners. And he said, so why you got to pray every day? Why you got to confess every day? Why you got to, Yahuwah, have mercy on them. Have pity on us. Yahuwah, save me. Yahuwah, have mercy on the sinners. So you ain't supposed to just pray for you. You ain't supposed to just confess for you. This is the only thing Yahuwah going to hear. You think, what you think? What else do you think you're going to hear? Look at all the stuff people doing today. And get what he said. And he walked as before, and he saw in an obscure place an immortal worm. I saw a worm this morning. It was orange with spot. It was long and had like black spikes with a black face. But it said, he said, I placed an immortal worm, its magnitude, it says, and he walked as before, and he saw, this verse 34, in an obscure place an immortal worm. Its magnitude was not able to reckon, and in front of its mouth stood many sinners. And when it drew its breath like flies, they entered into its mouth. Then when it exhaled, they all exited a different color. And Azra said, who are they? And they said, they were full of every bad thing, and they went about without confession and penitence, right? He said they went without confession or penitence, right? And what is penitence? Penitence is generosity. Right? Verse 37, and he saw a person sitting in the fiery throne, and his counselors, verse 37, stood around him in the fire. Right? They did what? And his counselors stood around him in the fire, and they served him from the fire, and out of every side. And Azra said, who is that? And the Malachi said, that man whose name is Herod was king for a long time, who in Bethlehem Yehuda slew the infant males on the account of the master. And Azra said, Master, judge a right judgment. And he walked and saw men who were bound, and the Malachi of Sheol, hell, were pricking their eyes with thorns. They were doing what? They were pricking their eyes with thorns. And that's the 16th letter of the alphabet. I mean the 16th day of the 7th month. And it said they were pricking their eye with thorns. And Azra said, who are they? The Malachi said, they showed strange paths to those wandering. He said, that's strange. You know what strange path is? Strange instance, strange everything, right? He said, it's a strange path. Why? Because we supposed to be in Kagsuka. You supposed to be in booths. And you know what happens after that? Azra said, Yahuwah, have mercy on the sinners. Right, here we go. And he saw virgins with 500-pound neck irons on them. And as if near death coming to the west, Azra said, who are they? And Malachi said, they violated their virginity before marriage. He's like, look what you done did. And now you see why your Shaul told you, I espouse you to one husband, that I may present you a chaste virgin to Yahushua Mashiach. Why you think you're going to be confessions, right? Offering praise and doing all these things and resisting sins before Yahushua come back. Why do you think you're doing it? But guess what happens? And there was a multitude of old men lying prostrate, and over them a molten iron and lead were being poured. And he said, who are they, these old men? And the Malachi said, they are the doctors of the law who confused immersion in the law of Yahuwah, because they were teaching with words, but did not spur on to work. And in this they were judged. And Azra said, Yahuwah, have mercy on the sinners. It says, and he saw the visions of the furnace, right, skipping over. Yeah, here we go, yeah, keeping that. And it says, and he saw the vision of the furnace against the setting sun, burning with fire, in which were sent many kings and princes of this world, and many thousands of poor people were accusing them and saying, they though their power wounded us and dragged free men into servitude, into slavery. They dragged free men that were free into slavery. And what they do? And he saw another furnace burning with pitch and sulfur, into which sons were cast who acted wretchedly at the hands of their parents. Right, so this 1 Timothy. That's Thessalonians. 1 Timothy. 2 Timothy. Let's see, 1 Timothy. Yeah, 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. Now the Ruach, 1 Timothy 4:1. Now the Ruach expressly says that in the latter days some will depart from Amunah. They say walking in strange paths, by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons. Right? He said teachings of demons. Why? Going to 1 Timothy 3 and 1. 1 Timothy 3 and 1. Actually, no, that's not it. No. Sorry. 2 Timothy 3 and 1. 2 Timothy 3 and 1. But understand this, 2 Timothy 3 and 1. It says, understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, not Qhdsh, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure. He said having intercourse on Yahuwah's day, rather than lovers of Elohim, having the appearance of righteousness, but denying its power. Because the most powerful people were walking through the fiery front, walking through the fire, and they weren't even touched. Right, so this is going to verse 48. It says, and he saw visions, we almost finished with this, and it furnace visions of the furnace against the setting of the sun, burning with great fire, in which were sent many kings and princes of the world. And many thousands of poor people were accusing them, saying, they, through their power, wounded us and dragged free men into servitude. And he saw another furnace burning with pitch and sulfur, in which the sons were cast who acted wretchedly at the hands of their parents, and caused injury by means of their mouth. That's why he told you to put your hand over your mouth. Matter of fact, that's the 17th day of the 7th month, and that's the 17th alphabet. That's Pa. Your mouth. He say saying something you should not say. And he saw the most obscure place another furnace burning, into which many women were cast. And he said, who are they? And the Malach said, they had sons in adultery and killed them. He said they had sons in adultery and killed them. How you kill them? Abortion. I don't want to know. You know what he said? And those little ones themselves accused them, saying, Master, the souls which you gave to us, these women took away. And guess what he said? And he said, who are they? And the Malach said, they killed their sons. And Aydah said, Yahuwah, have mercy on the sinners. Have mercy on me, a sinner. Why do you think that man said, Yahuwah, you had one a tax collector and one a sinner? He said, I can't even lift my head up. He said, have mercy on me, a sinner. He would say, why? And then the Michal and Garba'al, you know when they come. No games. Garba'al came and said to them, come into Shaby'ay. And Aydah said, as my master lives, I may not come until I see every judgment of sinners. Because he want to take note, make sure I ain't going to do it. He like, I need to see everything. Please show me everything, right? And they let him downward into the infernal regions beyond the 14th level, right? And he saw lions and little dogs lying around fiery flames. And the just came through them, and they crossed over into paradise. And he saw many thousands of the just, and their habitations were the most splendid of any time. And after he saw this, he was lifted up into Shaby'ay. And he came to a multitude of Malachim, and he said to them, pray to Yahuwah for the sinners. Why? And they put him down within the sight of Yahuwah. And he said, Yahuwah, he said, Master, have mercy on the sinners. And Yahuwah said, Aydah, let them receive according to their works. I told you it's your cold's trouble. People say, ain't your cold's trouble. It's your cold's trouble. Why every man got a hand on his stomach? He said, all your lovers have forgotten you. You would put all that stuff on you. He said, why? Because your sins were great. Because your sins are many. That's why. Because of your sin. And he said, why? Because that's why he made you dwell in Sukkah. And guess what he said? He said, please pray for him. However, he says, let them get judged according to the word. And Aydah said, Yahuwah, you have shown mercy and clemency, right? That's leniency to the animals, which eat the grass and have not returned you praise than to us. They die and have no sin. However, you torture us, living and dead. And Yahuwah said, in my image I have formed man, Adam, and I commanded that they not sin, and they sinned. Therefore, they are in torments. Right? Like we say. And here's what it says after that. And the elect are those who go into the eternal rest on the account of confession. He said, why you go to Sukkah in the booth with some wood, in the wood with animals and trees and all this confessions and praising your wood for 7 days in booths and doing all this stuff? Why are you doing all this confession and junk? He says, confession and penitence, generosity and largesse, and almsgiving. Right? Right? He said, what? He said, what? He would say, well, what is largesse? Right? Because some people will say that. Right? So that word largesse means. Right? You got Google, right? Largesse means generosity or bestowing money or gifts upon. Right? That's what largesse means. Penitence means. Penitence. That's what it's saying, yeah. Penitence, right? Penitence is meaning the action of feeling or showing sorrow or regret for having done wrong, or repentance, right? Sorrow, right? He said, why would you do that? And it says, and Aydah said, Yahuwah, what do the just do in order that they may not enter into judgment? And Yahuwah said to them, just as the servant who performed well for his master will receive liberty, so too will the just in the kingdom of Shaby'ay, right? All that, right? Because all that's important, right? So going to the book of Psalms, chapter 53 and verse 1. Psalms 53 and 1. Psalms 53 and 1. Tahalim, Psalms 53 and 1. It says, the fool says in his heart, there is no Elohim. They say, ain't no way in the world that stuff real. They are corrupt, doing abominable iniquity. There is none who does good. Right? You get what it says? Elohim looks down from Shamayim on the children of Adam to see if there are any who understand. That's all he's looking for. He said, do you understand? Are there any who seek after Elohim? He's like, anybody? That's the whole point. That's what being in Sukkah is. To seek after your Father. They have all fallen away. Now you see what? He said, what? He said, you seeking after great things. That's what y'all seeking after. He said, you seeking after riches and money and things of that sort. You seeking after praise from men. Right? Because that's what Yahushua said. He said, why did Yahushua say this? And then, people say, why you want to keep doing it? But when Yahuwah blind your mind, there ain't nothing you can do about it. Ain't nothing you can do about it, right? This is the book of, this is the book of Matthew. We're going to go back there. We're going to go back to that Psalms 53 and 1. This is Luke chapter 16 and verse 14. Luke 16:14. The Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard all these things, right? Because I'm telling you, when people started to love these things, it's a root of all evil, right? And they ridiculed him, right? Why? Because you start talking against what they got. Start talking against their finances, their money, their possessions, what they did, their accomplishments, stuff like that. And he said to them, you are those who justify yourselves before men. That's why people go online, boast about what they got, everything they do. These are all things to justify yourself amongst men, right? Yahusha said, seek ye first the Malkuth, right? The kingdom. You are they who justify yourself before men, but Elohim knows your heart. See, so you think people don't, you who will be looking, you will be watching everybody, man. He said, I know her. I'm looking for anybody who understands. He said, I know these people don't. For what is exalted among men is an abomination in the sight of Elohim Yahuwah. He said, that's an abomination. You know the abomination to make a desolation? He said, that's going to be you. He said, that'll be you. Because he said, highly esteemed among men. Only men praise that type stuff. He said, human beings. That stuff goes away. Believe me. Like you could be on a pinnacle. I was on a pinnacle, and then next thing you know, you at the bottom. He's like, man, that stuff, it's for a while. It's not for everyone. It's not forever. This is Psalm 53 and 3. They have all fallen away. Together with they become corrupt. Because when you don't seek after Yahuwah, you can go to a Kag, a Suga, a meat, a feast, a muad, and not seek Yahuwah at all. And guess what? Yahuwah say, you all fallen away at the place. He said, you fallen away even doing it. He said, I'm looking for people who understand it. There is none who does good, not even one. He ain't got no good deeds. He said, nobody does good. Have those who work evil no knowledge? He said, you ain't got no knowledge? Who eat up my people as they eat bread? And do not call upon Elohim. He said, you a wolf, a lion, and a leopard, and a bear. He said, you eat up my people like you eat up bread. Make sure he said, beware that you bite and devour each other. Take care lest you consume one of another. Right? He said, you eat up my people. He said, y'all I thought y'all understood this. You can put your hand over your mouth. Matter of fact, some of y'all turned into the side. He said, turn into the side of the winged creature, and now people don't heard what you said. And then he said, you didn't even do that. He said, you weren't watching after the 15th day, because after the 15th day, you're supposed to be watching. And now we're on the 18th day, and now he said, what type of desires you have? That's the whole point. What type of desire you have? If you're in the right place, in the right state of mind, the right state of being, your desire is something totally different than what people that are around do, right? It says, have those who work evil no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread, and do not call upon Elohim? There they are in a great terror, where there is no terror. For Elohim scatters the bones of him who encamps against you. You put them to shame, for Elohim has rejected them. Right? So now he rejected these people. Oh, that salvation for Yahshua would come out of Saum, when Elohim restores the fortune of his people. Let your coat rejoice and be glad. Why? That's all a part of it. Right, this is Psalms chapter 67 and verse 1. Tahalim, Psalms chapter 67 and verse 1. Psalm 67 and verse 1. May Elohim be gracious to us and barak us, and make his face to shine upon us, that your way may be known on earth, and your saving power among all nations. How your saving power gonna walk with all nations, be with all nations? Because you're gonna be walking. You're gonna be walking in the midst of the fire, and you ain't gonna be burned. Right? He said, let the people praise you, O Elohim, and let all the people praise you. That's the whole point. When you start praising a human being, then guess what you just did? You start highly exalting a human being, it's an abomination in the sight of Yahuwah, right? So you exalt you just like Nebuchadnezzar. They built a golden image. he had been tried through the fire. You know, he says, I find you, chose you to the furnace of affliction, and now you end up worshiping the being. Now you singing praise and songs and making songs about the person. And then now it becomes what? An abomination. He said, I'm looking for some people who got some understanding. Let the people praise you, O Elohim, and let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy. For you judge the peoples with equity, and guide the nations upon earth, lest you have a strange path. Let the peoples praise you, O Elohim, and let all the peoples praise you. The earth has yielded its increase. Elohim, our Elohim, shall bless us, barak us. Elohim shall barak us. Let all the ends of the earth fear, right? Wow, that's important, right? All that's important, right? This is the book of, this is all important, right? Right, so yeah, this is the book of Psalm. Let's go to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs. Let's go to Ezekiel 31. Ezekiel chapter 30. Let's go to Ezekiel 31 and 1. Ezekiel 31 and 1. Ezekiel 31 and 1. Let's go to 31 and 4. 31 and 4. It says, the waters nourished it, the deep made it grow tall. Right, as rain and snow come down from Shaby'ay, so did the Barbie that goes out of my mouth, right? But then he says the deep make it grow tall. Like you need to go, the Ruach, you gotta search the deep things. That's the only way you're gonna grow taller. You can say, I want to be a little bit taller than I am. But you gotta search out the deep things. And it says, the waters nourished it, the deep made it grow tall, making its rivers flow around the place of its planting, right? That's the only way your mountain gonna get taller. And then the streams flow down, and where you plant it at. And guess what? To all the trees of the field. So it towered high above all the trees of the field. Its boughs grew large, and its branches long, and abundant waters in its shoots. And all the birds of the Shaby'ay made their nests in its boughs under its branches, and all the beasts of the field gave birth to their young under the shadow, and lived all great nations. Right. So when you at that high, that pinnacle, you searching the deep things. He said your fall will be great if something happens. But let's see what happens. It was beautiful in its greatness, in the length of its branches. Now you see why that which is highly esteemed among men is an abomination inside of Yahuwah. People say, well, Yahuwah don't be liking that stuff. Especially when you're not praising him. Oh, he do not like it. He don't. You ain't got no confessions. You ain't got no remorse or regret for what you did. You ain't got no generosity. He was like, hold up. It was beautiful and great, and it looked good too. And its length of its branches, for its roots went down to abundant waters. Man, his roots, man, that thing getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it looking good too. The cedars in the garden of Elohim could not rival it. Man, he's like, you starting to look like you looking like the cedars in the Garden of Eden. Right? You know how Yahuwah like, I don't want your tree to look better than my trees in the garden. In the garden. I don't want you to look better than that. The cedars in the garden of Elohim could not rival it, nor the fir trees equal its boughs. Neither were the plane trees like branches. Like we out here, all these trees. You see all these big trees? You would like it. It says, no tree in the garden of Elohim was equal in beauty. He's like, man, I ain't never seen a tree like this. I made it beautiful in the mass of its branches, And all the trees of Eden envied it. He said they started envy. You know, Yahuwah don't like when you causing people to commit sin. He don't like when you be causing people to get jealous and envious. He don't like that. He said, I don't want that in my kingdom. I need 80 new, humble, shafal people. I don't like when people get envy and jealousy, right, inside their heart because of you. It says that we're in the garden of Elohim. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah Elohim, because it towered high and set its top among the clouds. We see the cloud, like we under Yahuwah's feet. Like we just under his feet, like sapphire. And he don't even like when your tree get past the cloud. He's like, I don't even want you to go past the cloud. I don't even want you to go past the chariots that I ride on the wings of the wind. I don't even want you to get that high. Get what it said. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah Elohim, because it towered high and set its top on the clouds, and its heart was proud of its height. That's what happens to us. That's what happens to us. That's why he wants us in Sukkah. I want you to see that your branch is going to fall eventually one day. I want you to see that these big giant trees, they eventually going to fall and you're going to use it as firewood. I need you to be outside. I need you to dwell in Sukkah. It says, among the clouds, and its heart was proud of its height, where they start boasting. And guess what? I will give it into the hand of a mighty one of the nations. And he shall surely deal with it as its wickedness deserves. Ooh. And why you see Job said, even though you're in the right, he said, don't even lift your head up. He said, don't you do it. And guess what? I have cast it out. Foreigners, the most ruthless of the nations, have cut it down and left it. Now you see why they cut all these giant trees down here. He said, man, what happened to all the big trees? And guess what? On the mountains and in the valleys, its branches have fallen. You hear these things falling all the time. He said, well, branches keep falling down from these trees out here. Because Yahuwah just letting you know. He said, this is how I look at people. I use it for firewood. And it says, and its boughs have been broken in all the ravines of the land. That's what we be saying. He's like, man, the ravines and all this, getting all these branches, right? And all the peoples of the earth have gone away from its shadow and left. Because there ain't no more leaves on the tree. That's why this is the last little bit of foliage we get. And then all the leaves are gone. Ain't no more shade no more. Ain't no more hiding under the wings of the branches. The branches ain't got nothing on them. Verse 13. On its fallen trunk dwell all the birds of the Shamayim, and on its branches all the beasts of the field. He said, all of them are falling away. Is there anybody who understands? He says, all this is in order that no trees by the water may grow to towering height, or set their tops among the clouds. He said, so why he said that? This is the book of Psalms. People say, why he want us to dwell in booths? This is the reason why. Psalms 1 and 1. Barak is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked. He said, how come the wicked? He was like, man, they got everything. Nor stands in the way of sinners. He said, I ain't getting in your way. Nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of Yahuwah. And on his law he meditates, Hagar, Yom and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, yielding fruit in its season. But Yahuwah said, going back to Ezekiel chapter 31, Yekaziel 31, but he just said, Ezekiel 31 and 13. Ezekiel 31:13. On its fallen trunk dwell all the birds of the Shamayim, and on its branches all the beasts of the field. And all this is in order that no tree by the waters may grow towering height, or set their tops among the clouds. Boy, I thought we were supposed to be like trees planted by rivers of living water, right? We are. But for some reason, we have this tendency when we get a little high and a little too much, Yahuwah like, I gotta bring you back down. I can't allow you to do that. Cause we get arrogant, we get proud, then we get like Nabal, nobody can say nothing. Then we don't understand. Then we start oppressing people. Then we don't cover our mouth. Then we turn to the side. Right? We start desiring things we don't want, we shouldn't want. Like David. Right? We start doing other things. Right? We ain't watching. We ain't watching no more. We ain't getting the experience of Sukkah anymore. We ain't doing that no more. And then we start to look at things we ain't got no business. Then we lose all the fortification in our pillar. That's what the trunk is on the tree. And then the tree start to hang over on the side because the branches on one side just so big. Then the tree start to hang over and it's starting to losing its support. And you will say, you know what? Man, we like a tree planted by rivers of water. Meditate on the bar, human night. And you will say, you know what? You too arrogant now. You too proud. He said, you know what? I gotta keep it down. I gotta take it down now. This is Ezekiel 31, going back, 31:14. And this is the order that no trees by the waters may grow to the towering height to set their tops among the clouds. And that no trees that drink water may reach up to them in height. For they are all given over to death. For the wages of sin is death. He says, so this is like sin to you. He's like, yeah. I don't like it. Yahuwah said he don't like it. It said, death to the world below. He says, for they are given over to death to the world below, among the children of men. Why do you think Yahushua? He said, if you be the son of Adam, come down from the cross and we'll believe in you. But not even knowing that was death below. He had to stay up that we may have life. He had to stay up on the cross so we could have life. So we were all in death. We were all in sin. But then they also cut down the tree anyway. And they cut down the tree anyway. Matter of fact, they broke the branches of the two thieves. So he broke their legs. It says, among the children of men, with those who go down to the pit. Now you see where you're going. Because everybody going to the pit. But you see what happens. Verse 15. Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, on the day that the cedar went down to Sheol, I caused mourning. I closed the deep over it and restrained its rivers, and many waters were stopped. He said, I stopped them. You know why he did that? Just so that tree won't grow no more. He's like, I stopped all the rivers and the streams, and I restrained it. I clothed Lebanon in a gloom for it, and all the trees of the field fainted because of it. You know what happens when you faint? You hit the ground. Because when you start to see this big tree fall, then everybody else fall. He like, that's exactly what I want. I want everybody humble. Einu, Ana, Anua. I want you down. And I made the nations quake at the sound of its fall. I make the ground shake. Man, wouldn't you would like to be alive when that giant tree was cut down, how the ground shook? Boom! Right? The whole ground shook. But guess what? When the tree fall, that's where it lay. He said the whole ground shook. Why do you think Yahushua cried out and the tree came down? He said the whole temple was torn in two. The whole earth shook when the tree fell. And guess what? At the sound of this fall, when I cast it down to Sheol, why do you think Yahushua was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth? And guess what? What happened after that? And it says, when it was cast down to Sheol with those who go down to the pit, and all the trees of Aydin, the choices of the best of Lebanon, and all that drink water were comforted in the world below. He said, I sent that thing all the way down to the world below, to Sheol. And they were all comforted. Why? He went down to go teach to those who were trapped, those who were disobedient before the flood. He went to go teach them. They all were comforted. He's like, man, look at here. He that believes on me, as the scripture said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. But just understand, don't get too high. Because if you do, it'd be like Shaul said, what? Man, just so I won't be exalted above measure. He said a thorn was given to my flesh. So people won't look at me as they should not. You shouldn't be looking at me like that. Because you shouldn't. He's like, man, I besought Yahuwah 3 times. He's like, I ain't letting you get too big. I can't let your tree get too big. I gotta keep you down. And it's a reason for that, but it's for that reason. It says, verse 17, and they also went down to Sheol to those who are slain by the sword. Yes, those who were in its arms, who lived under its shadow among the nations. Whom are you, it says, whom are you thus like in glory and in greatness among the trees of Aydah? So now he's like, who are you now? You shall be brought down with the trees of Aydah into the world below. You shall lie among the uncircumcised, with those who are slain by the sword. Guess what he said? This is Pharaoh, and all his multitude declares Yahuwah Elohim. So who hardened Pharaoh's heart? Because he was covetous, and we did kafar. And you know why we did it? So we can be humble. We can afflict ourselves. Because if we ain't do it, if you ain't do kafar before Qahalath, you be like, I ain't do kafar, but I'm gonna do Qahalath. He said, that's a strange walk you just did. That's a strange path you just laid out for people to follow. That's a strange path. Right? That's a strange path. This is Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 3. Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 1. Isaiah chapter 3 and verse... Isaiah chapter 3... Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 12. Isaiah chapter 3 verse 12. Actually 3 and 11. 3 and 11. Woe to the wicked, it shall be ill with him or her. For what his hands have dealt out shall be done to him. What your branches have been dealt. And we supposed to have the branches in our hand. We supposed to worship before Yahuwah. He said, but what you do before? That's why he said, why you got to confess? What are we doing confession for? Why are we getting in a booth, burning wood and confessing to Yahuwah and praising him with, right? All this stuff. Why are we doing all that? That's worthless. But in actuality, it's not. Woe to the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for what his hands have dealt out shall be done to him. He said, what you do with your hands, it's going to be done right back to you. My people, infants are their oppressors. He's like, children, infants. Because you read about them children. He's like, man, these children be saying things they should be saying out of their mouth. As a matter of fact, and women rule over them. He say, and women rule over them. Over these children. And women rule over these children. Oh, my people, your guides mislead you. And guess what? And they have swallowed up the course of your paths, because it's a strange path. He said, you people who swallow up my people like bread. He said, you swallow up my people like bread. You know what? You know what you did? You know why infants are your oppressors and women rule over them? It's because you like Ahab. You love money more than you love the women and children, and you give over the women and children to them and your money. You give them over to Satan. You swallow up my people. You just like them. You just like Satan. You just like Shaitan. What does Shaitan's name mean? Devour male and female's life. He said, y'all just like him. Right? You want to give the souls over. Abraham ain't give the souls. He ain't give the souls over to him. He said, keep the goods. He said, I don't love money like that. I don't love clothes like that. I don't like things. I don't love those things like that. But those who do, they'll give you over. And you know what happens after that? Oh, my people, your guides mislead you. It is you, my guide, mine equal. We took sweet counsel together to the house of Elohim. It's y'all. And guess what he said? They have swallowed up the course of your paths. They hid it from you. Yahuwah has taken his place in to contend. Uh-oh. He stands to judge peoples. Uh-oh. Yahuwah will enter into judgment with the elders. Oh, here we go. There it is. And princes of his people. The Nasi. And guess what he says? It is you who have devoured the vineyard. They swallow up my people like bread. The spoil of the poor is in your houses. He said the spoil of the poor is in your houses. It's in your houses. You're supposed to be in sukkah booths. But all the poor people stuff that you're supposed to be giving to people, you know how we talked about confessions, remorse for what you've done, generosity, right? And giving gifts back. He said the poor, you got the spoil of the poor in your house while you in sukkah booth. Yeah, after sukkah over, right? Get what he said. What do you mean by crushing my people? By grinding the face of the poor, declares Yahuwah of hosts. Yahuwah said, because the daughters of Saul are haughty, and then once they do that to your paths and swallow up your path, then Yahuwah said, you know what? I'm gonna get. You know how this is the same judgment he gave to Adam. He said, Adam, where are you? He got Adam, and then he said, woman, what have you done? Being that the princes and the elders and everybody ain't doing what they supposed to do, shoot, I'm gonna do what I want to do. He said, then Yahuwah, because the daughters of Saul are haughty and walk with outstretched neck, glancing and wanting with their eyes. He said, just like we just read in the vision of Azra, what she was doing? She was getting dressed up and looking her best for others. And he said, who was like, I judge them too. Mincing as they go, tinkling with their feet. Therefore Yahuwah will strike the scab in the heads of the daughter of Saul, and Yahuwah will lay bare their secret parts. In that day Yahuwah will take away the fiery anklets. Oh, here we go. You know how in them branches, these are all the branches on the tree. You know how we got all the branches? He said, I'm going to bring that branch down. Yahuwah will take away the fiery anklets, the headbands, the crescents, the pendants, the bracelets, the scarves, the headdresses, the amulets, the sashes, and the perfume boxes and the amulets. Ain't that something? Now you see why he tells you, don't. He said, don't you see the grass of the field? I clothe them. He said, don't be anxious about your life. Isn't life worth more than these? He said, seek ye first the Malkut, and I'll give you what's proper. Because he said, I'm going to take it all away. You know why he said you can take it all away? Because when he wanted the women and the children, Ahab said, no, you're not getting the women and the children. You can get the gold and the silver, though. You can get the possessions. You can take the possessions and everything else, but you're not getting the women and the children and the souls. That's why Yahuwah said, I'm going to take it all away. Because you're not going to take their souls. I'm going to take away their possessions, but you're not going to take their souls, Satan. That's literally what he did. That's why he was taking it away. It's a barak for Yahuwah to cut your tree down. People say, nah. Which would you rather have? Your tree cut down now, or have your tree cut down when the Malachi come and then cast you in the lake of fire, or in the fiery furnace? I'd rather have my tree cut down now. You rather have your stuff taken now. And it says perfume boxes and amulets, the signet rings and the nose rings, the festal robes, right? So you ain't got nothing to wear. You would say, take no thought of what you're going to wear, eat, or drink, or what you're going to put on. For these things the Gentiles seek after. Why do you think he was saying that to you? Because these are teachings of Yahushua Mashiach. What do you mean? What do I lack? He said, sell what you got and give to the poor. Or you just be like Satan and swallow up the poor like the princes and the elders. Though. So Yahuwah's like, I'm going to teach you how to sell, get rid of everything. And guess what? The festal robes and the mantles and the cloaks and the handbags, that's what people got on. The festal robes, right? Looking good. Look great too. And guess what it says? The mantles, the cloaks, and the handbags, the mirrors. He said the mirrors. Though my outward man perish, my inward man is renewed day by day. The linen garments, the turbans. I got. He said everybody got one on. He said I'm gonna take that. He said the veils. You know the veils that Shaul was talking about. You know the veil. You know how women got their head covered and stuff. You know that stuff that Shaul was talking about. Instead of perfume, there will be rottenness, right? Because when you're in Sukkah booths, there ain't really much you can really do. He said, I made you dwell in Sukkah. That's why he take this stuff away. People be like, why he did all this? Because he don't want you, he wants you down. But you have no idea. You have no idea. That's why he wants you in Sukkah booths. He wants you in the Sukkah. Casting your behind down. He says, instead of perfume, there will be rottenness. Instead of a belt, a rope, right? These are all things you make of a Sukkah booth. Right? You got rotten leaves, branches. You got ropes. You got to tie your sukkah, your tabernacle with, right? These are all things you make a sukkah booth with. It says turbans, right? He said instead of rottenness, perfume, it will be rotten leaves and everything, right? You ain't gonna be able to keep your smell, right? Instead of a belt, a rope. Instead of well set hair, baldness, right? You're gonna be stressed out because I got you out here in the wood with bears and lions and leopards and lions and bugs and spiders and caterpillars and things that can crawl up your nose, right? I got you out here with the insectoids, right? Y'all not dwelling in your beautiful houses anymore and all the stuff you had. You get what it says? The rich robe, instead of rich robe, a skirt of sackcloth, right? Now you praying, you confession, and we just read it in Osra. Confessions, remorseful, right? These are all a part of the transformations that one goes through, right? Because this is all about humble, because you already know we ain't humble. Especially being around people who ain't. This is what this is for. It says a skirt of sackcloth and branding instead of beauty. Now you going into slavery. Your men shall fall by the sword, and your mighty men in battle. Now you see why. These are Yahuwah's judgments. But these are all a part why he made us dwell in Sukkah. Because we need to stay in it. We need to do it over and over again. Because we forget to be kafar, we could forget to afflict, we forget to be Aynu, then we're going to go right back through this same situation again and again and again. And it's needful, though. And her gates shall lament and mourn, empty shall sit on the ground. Oh, there you go. They shall sit on the ground, right? Right, when you're in Sukkah booth, where are you sitting at? If you really understand it. I made you dwell in Sukkah. That's what happens. Right? That's what happens, right? And this is all a part of it, right? We're almost finished. This is Book of Psalms. Psalms chapter 80 and verse 1. Psalm chapter 80 and verse 1. It says, give ear, O shepherd of Yasharal, you who lead Yusuf like a flock. You who are enthroned upon the cherubim, shine forth. Right? You got homies of the child to believe in the cherubim. Before Ephraim and Benjamin and Manasseh, stir up your might and come and save us. You know what Koph said? Restore us, O Elohim. Let your face shine that we may be saved. Now you see why wisdom. He said wisdom make your face to shine. Hakma. O Yahuwah of hosts, how long will you be angry with your people's prayer? Oh. He said, how long with your people's prayers? You have led them with the bread of tears, and giving them tears to drink in full measure. What do you think that is? Why do you think the bar is? That's Yahuwah's mercy and that's his tears. And guess what it says? You make us an object of contention to our neighbors, and our enemies laugh among themselves. Restore us, O Elohim of hosts. Let your face shine that we may be saved. You brought a vine out of Mizraim, and you drove out the nations and planted it. You cleared the ground for it. That's what you're supposed to do. It took deep root and filled the land. The mountains were covered with its shade. Oh man, we just talked about this big tree. It was covered with its shade. The mighty cedars with its branches. Man, ain't no tree in the Garden of Eden like this tree. It sent out its branches to the sea, and its shoots to the river. Goodness, that's a big tree. Why then have you broken down its walls so that all who pass along the way pluck its fruit? The boar from the forest ravages it. Uh-oh. And all that move in the field feed on it. Turn again, O Elohim of hosts. Look down from Shamayim and see. Have regard for this vine. You know what he says? The stock of your right hand. The stock your right hand planted. Your yard. That's what we did on Kafar. That's what we did. Why do you think Yahusha died for you? Why do you think Yahusha's blood was spilled for your sins? Why do you think he was the son of the right? Why do you think he says, sit down here in my right hand until I make thy enemies thy footstool? And for the son whom you made strong for yourself. Why do you think he made Yahusha? Until a child is born, until his son is given, and the government going to be upon his shoulder. On the increase of his government and peace, righteousness and peace is going to be no end. They have burned it with fire. Right? They burned it. That's what we do every single morning and evening. And it says, they have cut it down. May they perish at the rebuke of your face. But what it says, but let your hand be on the man of your right hand. Uh-oh. He said, let the hand be upon the man on your right hand. And guess what? The son of Adam, whom you have made strong for yourself. Then we will know, we shall not turn back from you. He said, do you know the son of his right hand that he made strong for himself? Once you know him, he said, ain't no way you're going to turn back from him. He said, why? Because Yahuwah made it that way. He said, Barak are they who keep the commandments and have the testimony of Yahushua Mashiach, for they are right to the tree of life. Ain't no way in the world you're gonna let that, you're not gonna go away from him. Then we shall not turn back from you. Give us life. Why do you think Yahushua said, I come to you might have life and have it more abundantly? And we will call upon your name, right? Restore us, O Elohim of hosts. Let your face shine that we may be saved. It's all a part of it, right? This is 2 Chronicles, Dabarim Hayamim 7, 11 through 22. Thus Shalom finished the house of Yahuwah and the king's house. And all Shalom had planted to do in the house of Yahuwah in his own house, and he successfully accomplished. Then Yahuwah appeared to Shalom in the night and said to him, I have heard your prayer. He said, how long are you going to be angry with our prayer? Until we start confessing our sins, right? It's not that difficult. And he says, then Yahuwah appeared to Shalom in the night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. And when I shut up Shamayim so that there is no rain, or command the locusts to devour the land, or send pestilence among my people. We just read all that. But guess what he said? If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, right? People seeking after other things, and turn from their wicked ways. That's what the wicked's for. That's what every week is for. But this is week. That's what it's for. Then I will hear from Shaby'ay, and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. I will heal you. That's the only way. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to their prayer that they made in this place. For now I have chosen and consecrated this house that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will be there for all time. And as for you, if you will walk before me as Dawid your father walked, doing according to all that I have commanded you and keeping my statutes and my rules, then I will establish your royal throne that I have covenant with Dawid your father, saying, you shall not lack a man to rule on Yasharal. Why? But verse 19. But if you turn aside, because if you ain't gonna forsake the son of the right hand in his strength, why would you do that? And forsake my statutes and my commandments that I set before you to go serve other gods and worship them. Because then you ain't walking in the power. You ain't like the powerful ones. You worship them. Then I will pluck you up from the land that I have given you, in this house that I have consecrated for my name. I will cast out of my sight. That's what he did to that giant tree. And I will make it a proverb and a byword among the peoples. He said, I'll make your name a proverb and a byword among the peoples. But sometimes you got to stay like that. You need you to be a laughing stock. Because that's what Yusha was. He says, and at this house, which was exalted, this is why you want to stay new. You want to stay humble. Everyone passing by will be astonished and say, why has Yahuwah done thus to this land or to this tree and to this house? Then he will say, because they abandoned Yahuwah, the Elohim of their fathers who brought them out of the land of Ham, right? Evil desires he had, and laid hold on other gods and worshiped them and served them. Now you see why Dawid was served. Why do you think Dawid didn't go out to go fight in the springtime? Because you know, why do you think he wasn't there? Why do you think he wasn't in the Sukkah with all Yasharal and Yehuda and the Ark of the Covenant in Sukkah? Everybody in Sukkah, no. He said, why he ain't there? You might be doing some other stuff. And that's the whole point. Why are people doing it? They're doing other things. Please don't be thinking like, oh, they ain't doing it. They're doing some righteous stuff. No, they're not. And worship them and serve them. Therefore, he has brought upon all this disaster on them. Now you see why. You would like, I gotta get a disaster on you. Wow. You'd be like, man, what happened? I need you in the sukkah booths, in the woods. I need you in sukkah. I need you out in sukkah. Because you know when disaster comes, you homeless. Earthquake. Right? You ain't got nowhere to lay your head no more. Right? Storm, hurricane. He's like, man, where you at now? And then you have to put you in the sukkah. I gotta get you a temporary place so you won't be like in your permanent place. I gotta get you in the sukkah booth. That's the only reason he do these things. I gotta get you in sukkah. So what do you need? An earthquake? You need a storm? You need a volcano eruption? You need a hurricane? You need a whirlwind? You need Yahuwah's finger to come on you? No, you just willingly be humble. A willing sacrifice. Right? You have to willingly do it. It's like a willing sacrifice. Verse 14, he said, my people, he said, will humble themselves. Well, for humble is kana. It means to be subdued. Humiliation, vanquish. Be in subjection, to bring down. That's why he did it at tree. Bring your behind down. That's the whole point. It's funny. It's fun. You know, Yahuwah has to do it. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 3. And he humbled you and led you to hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Every Malachi lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Every tree lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Every bird lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Every man, woman, and child lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Every bird, every insectoid, every hornet lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Every bee, every bear, lion, leopard, every cassowary bird, right? That big cassowary bird, the velociraptor claws in Australia, yeah, that thing lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. And every whale, right? But man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Everybody does. Right? And that's the whole point, right? That word for humble is anah. It starts with an iron. You got to see. And guess what? You will say, keep on doing it. Right? You got to see it. It means to be put down. It means to afflict, or humble, to weaken oneself, to be humiliated, to submit, to afflict, to be humble. Right? That's the whole point. Right? The luxuries, right? This Mashali Proverbs 29:23. One's pride will bring them low, right? That's what happens. Get prideful, gonna bring you low. I gotta take everything away. But he who is lowly in Ruach will obtain honor. That's the only way. You gotta stay that way. Stay lowly and stay in, and you'll retain honor. Because that which is highly esteemed among men is an abomination in the sight of Yahuwah. And that word for low is shafal. It means to be humble, humiliated, right? Low, based, right? Humble, right? Right. He said, "Get with the humble people." Right? He said, "Get base, lowly, right? Get with the humble people." Right? That's the whole point, right? Psalms 37:7-11. Be still before Yahuwah and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in the way, over the man who carries out evil devices, the wicked. Like we talked about in Job 21. Yeah, man, look at here. How in the world? Refrain from anger and forsake wrath. Corral not yourself, it tends only to evil. Why? You know how we driving in the car, you look at all these houses, you be like, man, look at that. Look at that. Look at that car. Look at that nice thing. Look at that. Look at that. And you know why you know when you start doing it the most? When you're in Sukkah booth. When you're in Sukkah, you're like, man, I remember when I was in that. I remember this. And this is the whole point. It brings it back to memory. For evildoers will soon be cut off. We're going to cut that tree down. And those who wait for Yahuwah shall inherit the Adahs. He said, you wait. Just a little while, the wicked will be no more. Though you look carefully at his place, he will not be there. But the meek, the Aydah, shall inherit the Adahs and delight themselves in the abundance of shalom. But you look around, he says shalom. Be still. That word is daman. To be silent. Right? Sometimes you don't need to talk. He say just be silent. Right? People say be silent, be still. Right? Wait, be dumb. Right? Sometimes you gotta be dumb. He say don't speak. To make quiet, to make silent, to be silent, right? That's all it is, right? To keep silence. Sometimes you have to do that. But the meek, the word for meek is Aydah. Aydah. Humble, afflicted, meek, and needy, right? He said you got all the poor in all the poor possessions in your house. He swallowed up my people. He said, you swallow up the humble people who humbled themselves and gave you things of their poor, their poverty, and you took it. And now you boasting about it. The princes, the rulers, and now you got infants ruling, and the women ruling over those children, and they got all that stuff. He said, you know what, I'm going to take you down. I got to take you down. It says poor, afflicted, humble, meek. Right? Aydah. The Aydah going to inherit and delight themselves in the abundance of soundness. That's shalom. Tranquility, peace and quiet. Peace, friendly, right? Completeness, soundness, welfare, peace, right? It says friendly terms. Right? Oh, that's a part of it. Proverbs 16, 19 through 20. It is better to be of a shafal ruach than with the anu, with the humble and meek, than to divide the spoil with the proud. Right? It's better to do that. The anu when he saw you hungry, when he saw you naked, when you were sick, all these things. He said, when did we do that? He said, you done it to the least of them, you done it to me. When did we see you that? Like Dawid, when he was going to go get his Isha, his wife, in the children, he inquired of Yahuwah first, and then he saw an Egyptian person left dead. And he gave him bread and water and got him up. And he said, will you help us? Whoever gives thought to the Debar will discover good. You know, he said Discovery Channel, but that's the Discovery Channel right there. See, all the animals that they film on there, all know about Yahuwah. They know exactly who give them food and stuff that they get. That's Discovery Channel. That's the Discovery Channel. People don't know it. You had the Discovery Channel before the Discovery Channel. We had the bar, and then we had the outdoors, and you could look outside. You could see Discovery Channel right there in your book. You're like, man, it's the Discovery Channel right here. You ain't had to turn the TV on. You had to channel it. Right? You had to go on the channel. It says Barak is the one who trusts in Yahuwah. He said you always gotta trust in him, right? No matter what. Proverbs 22:4. The reward of humility and the fear of Yahuwah, because Yahuwah ain't giving you nothing if you ain't humble and you get no fear. I ain't giving you jack. I'm gonna take you down. Is riches, honor, and life. He not riches and esteemed among men, right? No, not that. That's not. It's a false humility, right? That's Cain type humility. That's like Cain type humility. One letter of his name and then want to kick you out, right? Right. That's like Cain, right? Open right hand is that's the entrance way into the kingdom of Yahuwah. Yah. That's how his name starts. It says condescension, right? The word for humility is anua. It means clemency, right? Leniency, gentleness. That's how Yahuwah is. Condescension, attitude, or it says superiority, the same. The Ayinu going to inherit the Adats, the anua. Clemency is mercy and lenience, right? Humility, meekness. Micah 6:6-8. He has told you, O Adam, what is good. And what does Yahuwah require of you but to do judgment, love kindness, chesed, and to walk humbly with your Elohim? Because if you don't, you're going to be in the sukkah, in the tent, in the hall. You're going to be inside of your sukkah doing things you shouldn't know. Right? That word for humble is sanah. To be humble, to be modest, lowly. Show humility. Modest, humble, lowly. Right? Always, right? To humiliate. Either you be lowly willingly, or you will just humiliate you, and then you'll figure it out. It always worked. It worked for some of the most. It worked for everybody. It worked for Yusuf. Man, it worked for David. It worked for Nebuchadnezzar. It worked for a lot of people. It worked for Sarah. Right? It worked for Rebecca. Man, it worked for Adam. Right? It worked for a lot of people. It worked for Yahushua. It worked for Yahushua Mashiach. It worked for Kaf too. It worked for Shaul. Man, it worked for a lot of people. Please don't be thinking it ain't gonna work. It works. The records show that when you ain't lowly and Yahuwah takes you down, it works. He bring you down, right? It works, right? It says lowly, humble, right? It's sanah, to walk humbly, right? Matthew 6:22-23. The iron is the lamp of the body. That was on the 16th day. But if your eye is healthy, your whole body is full of light. And that's why iron is the start of most, Ainu, Anah, and Anu. But if your eye is evil, your whole body is full of darkness. How great is that darkness? Yahuwah brought us out of darkness into this marvelous light. He brought us out of darkness into this marvelous light. Now you may be a kingdom of Kahan, priest. He said, but if your eye is darkness, then you are full of dark. If your eye evil, well, you're full of evil, right? What you doing on the Shabbat, right? You know how they say. If your eye full of darkness, then you are gonna ask him. He that thinks on the word will discover good. Had they done it, and we had never been coming at him like that. Have you not read? Right, this is the book word. The word for bad is paneros. It means hurtful or evil. Right, you got an evil, hurtful eye. Right. This is Isaiah Yeshayahu 8:18 through 20. Behold, I and the children you have given me are for signs, portents, and Yasharal from Yahuwah of hosts, who dwells on Mount Sion. And when they say to you, inquire of mediums and necromancers that chirp and mutter, should not a people inquire of their Elohim? Should they inquire of the dead on behalf of the living, to the teachings and to the testimony? If they do not speak according to the bar, this word, it is because they have no light, no dawn in them. Right. That word for portent, that word for, I'm the children you give me for portents, that word for portents is mufaz or mofaz, mofaz. It means a miracle. They are for miracles. They're for signs and tokens, right? And omen, right? It's a miracle to be wondered, right? A future event, a token of a future event, right? That's all this is, a miracle. Because this is a miracle. And the omen is a regarded portent, or a regarded as a portent of good and evil, a prophetic significance. That's what he said, you are a miracle in the earth, walking. You are a miracle walking, right? Conspicuous, a state of quality of being or seen or noticed or attracting attention due to striking features of outstanding quality, right? Not, what's the outstanding quality? Einu, Ana, Anua, Shafal, Sana, right? Not walking in pride and arrogance. Because that's the whole point. Because if you don't, right? Sirach 3:17 through 23. My son and daughter, go on thy business in meekness, so shalt thou be beloved of him who is approved. The greater thou art, the more humble thyself. She said, get even more humble. Because your tree not big. Right? You got your roots all in the ground. He said, man, you got to get even more Einu. He said, you want to get too hot, he said, you get too high, and then next thing you know, the more humble thyself, right? You got to get more humble. And thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. He said, the reward of humility is riches, honor, and life. He said, that's what you get. Many are in high places and renown. Hey, there are many giant trees out here. But Yahuwah ain't going to show them nothing. They're going to be coming, and amazingly, people have no idea. This is the book of Revelations. This is how Yahuwah work. This is how Yahuwah work. And it works too. This is book of Revelations, chapter 2. Revelation chapter 2 and 9. I know your tribulation and your poverty. Because there are many men of renown and in high places, man, they rich. They got a lot of stuff. I know your tribulation and poverty, but you are rich. And the slander of those who say they are Yahudim and are not, but are they synagogue, Aydah, assembly of Satan. That's any people that get together that do evil. It ain't, people try to tag one people, don't even know when this was even written, right? I'm talking about you. Do not fear what you, it says, it's going to Revelations 3 and 9. Revelations 3 and 9. Revelations chapter 3 and verse 9. Revelations 3 and 9. Revelation chapter 3 verse 9. 3 and 8. I know your works. Behold, I have set you before you an open door. Right? Because why would you open the door? What did the 10 virgins, 5 were wise, 5 were foolish? He said, open unto us. Right? He left us an open door. And guess what he said? Which no one is able to shut. He said, you ain't shutting it. I know that you have but little power. He said, you got little amuna. You know, he said a little power. And yet you have kept my debar and have not denied my name. You know what we just read? Guess what? That's what you're doing now. But guess what? Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan, the assembly Aydah, the congregation of Satan, who say that they are Yahudim and are not but lie. Behold, I will make them come bow down before your feet. And they will learn that I have loved you. How are they going to learn? What happened when we say, Martha, 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 you troubled about so many things? Because the woman was sitting at his feet. He said, you troubled about so many things. He said, but she's chosen with that which cannot be taken away. Behold, I will make them come bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Why do you think Yahushua said, search the scriptures, and anything you think you have eternal life is speaking about me? So the Father loved the Son and showed him everything. Now you see why he showed him. He loves the Son. He showed him everything he's doing. Because you have kept my word about, he said, you have kept my word about patient endurance. Why? Because tribulation creates patience. Because you kept doing it, even through all this stuff. And you were enduring through all of it. I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world to try those who dwell on earth, because you got experience. Other people ain't got none. They ain't got no tribulation. Them people weren't even going through that. That's why Job was like, do it now, right? They ain't got no experience. They ain't been through nothing. He said, you done been through it. You done had a test run a couple times. Them people ain't never had no test run before. I am coming soon. Hold fast to what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. That's all. Once you get it, you know Satan coming. I mean, we talked about he gonna come back in the springtime. He like, yeah, fall. You know, he in Sukkah, but he coming still. Right? The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar. Isn't that what Samach means? That's what the first day of the 15th letter of the alphabet. That's what the first day for Chag Sukkah was for. It meant pillar. I will make you a pillar in the temple of my Elohim. Never shall he go out of it, and I will write on him the name of my Elohim and the name of the city of my Elohim. Right? So going back to Sirach 3:19, many are in high place and renown, but mysteries revealed unto the meek. For the power of Yahuwah is great and honor with the lowly. And it says, seek not out things too hard for thee, neither search for things that are above thy strength, but what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men and women understand. Right, so this is the 16th day, or the 18th day of Chag Sukkah, but knowing that Yahushua Mashiach has risen from the dead, but at the same time, we must maintain a character, and this character must be maintained. That all the living creatures and all the things, the beings on the earth may recognize that you are the children of Yahuwah. That people may understand that Yahuwah loves you above all people of the earth, and he made you a Malkuth, a kingdom of priests, to offer praises and sacrifices continually, right, upon in your body, which is your spiritual worship. Knowing that to walk truly with Yahuwah is to walk in righteousness, and to walk truly with Yahuwah is to walk in confession. To walk truly with Yahuwah is to walk in generosity and remorse for what you have done. To walk truly with Yahuwah is to do it always continually in your tent, in your body. Always, every single day. To do it every single day is to keep yourself in that humble Anu state, knowing that we are all worthy of death, He said, do not despise a person who has turned from sin, and do not make him a reproach, for we are all worthy of punishment. We are all worthy of punishment. For the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth.